things are gonna upset you. Things are gonna hurt your feelings. That doesn't mean anything other than your feelings are hurt, right?
Yes, yes, not the end of the world.
Not the end of the world. Look, if I had final say on everybody that got cast, we wouldn't need to have auditions for most anything. I'd be like, great, maybe this one role, well, I'll audition. I was like, I know the answer. Like, like if I were truly in charge, since we're talking inside of the landscape of theater, the first kind of like wave of auditions typically are your what are called required calls, right? The things that equity sets up for its membership. That sometimes is enough for certain things.
Welcome to Making It Happen, a career in the performing arts, where we discuss how to break into the performing arts industry for yourself or your child, teen, or young adult. Guests include professionals who are passionate and share my vision of helping talented individuals land professional representation and have successful careers in the arts. My name is Leesa Csolak, and my guest today is casting director Jason Styres. Hey, Jason, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm so good. I wish the summer wasn't going by so quickly.
I'm not a summer person, so I am very excited for it to be over. I'm so
So
ready
you're
for fall.
happy.
So
Really, the
ready for
heat.
fall.
Well, it's so human where we are. We're in the New
Right.
York market for everybody listening. We're out there and it can be really, yeah, it can be miserable, but I just don't like the cold has been just really cold. Not that I just want to talk about the weather, but we're going to talk about
Yeah. I mean, it's part of it.
the things that you do. Like, so in the summer, do you become reclusive and not want to walk on the streets of New York or what?
I 100% do that. Like that is very much my vibe, and I think I talk to my parents a lot about it, where I'm just like, it's really. I think it also kind of associates back to like my childhood, and like that basically equated to me like all of my friends I was going to be seeing on a daily basis. Summertime was out, everyone's school's out. I'm like, oh wait, that means everybody's leaving. I'm not going to see you every day. So it's actually kind of like the
Oh,
opposite for me. Yeah.
interesting.
Uh,
Interesting. I love that. I love that so much. So, you are, for everybody listening, you are a very, very well-known casting director you've cast so many amazing projects. I was doing a little bit of research beforehand, which I obviously knew already most of them. But you've been in it a long time, and we would love to hear more about your journey in an effort to have the listeners who are primarily young adults trying to navigate this path into the performing arts industry, as well as parents who are thinking about and trying to understand what that path may be. We know it's different for everyone. So, can we start at the beginning? When did you know you wanted to get involved in the performing arts?
oh man, oh man. I often tell people I had kind of a late start and unexpected start. Because I'm originally from Montgomery, Alabama, born and raised. And I went to a school, like my grade school and my junior high were what I affectionately refer to as nerd schools. And I think everybody that I went to school with, many of us are still very much in contact. We would all say basically the same, where the big things for us were like math competitions and science fairs and social studies fairs and all of these other kind of like elements that didn't really revolve. We did get experience like, on the what I would say on the side of like some music, some art elements, but really the focus was not that. There was
Really?
a yeah. We had a sister school that was kind of the arts grade school, and like,
Oh,
but then once you got to junior high, there was one building where everyone then met. So like all of
okay.
the grade schools, the grade school folks from Carver, that was the arts programming, and Forest Avenue, that was the academic programming, ended up in one building together.
Hmm.
So that all of a sudden kind of created a little bit more like exposure. I started playing a trumpet when I was in seventh grade when I
I
got to
played
junior
the
high.
trumpet too. I played the
Oh,
trumpet in sixth and seventh grade, about this much. And then I was like,
yeah.
what am I doing?
And I learned with braces. So once I got them off,
No.
I was like, I don't know how to do this anymore. So I was like, I'm not doing this again.
Right.
Um, but that's when we started getting a little bit more, just simply by literal proximity. We were just getting more exposure to the arts, generally speaking.
Hmm.
And then in eighth grade, I actually got kicked out of school for starting.
This is
I
getting
know.
juicy already.
Eighth grade, early start. Um, yeah, eighth grade, I got kicked out of school simply because I was starting a little some issues. We'll say we had started an underground newspaper that was kind of like challenging some things. So I had a lot of
Sure.
conduct, what was written up as conduct issues, and I didn't. And there was one class specifically where that affected my grade. So that kind of brought me to a point where they're like, okay, well, you're not coming back next year then. It was a very, very big wake up call for me at a pretty young age because like that was
Okay.
what 98.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean I was like 12 years old, 12,
Wow.
excuse me, 13, 13, 14 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a big wake up call. And obviously by the time I got back in, so we did a lot of like pleading and begging and like, oh my gosh, what have I done?
Hmm.
All the kind of posturing that,
Yeah.
systems love to kind of love on. Did that, and thankfully they did let me back in, but I was like a month and a half into the school year.
Okay.
So obviously a lot of classes had booked up and like a lot of, like even like things like I was supposed to do like show choir in my ninth grade year, but
Hmm.
basically since I wasn't coming back, I got kicked out of that too. So there wasn't a slot for me anymore.
Was that audition based?
That was
That
audition
part?
based. That was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I remember like
Yeah.
literally my one of my best friends. She's still one of my closest friends. She lives not too far from me here in New York too. She gave me my audition because she was a year ahead, and she gave me my audition for show choir. And I was like, yeah, I got it. And I never done any of that before. Never.
Well, wait, when did you know that you could sing? Like, when did you realize you could sing? Like, were you just listening to albums and say, like, where did that come from?
It was like it was. I remember I would audition too with the because they were like, "How about this song?" And it was a dance. They were a dance audition too. And so I'd never done any of this. I was just like, "Yeah, I could do that. Sure, yeah, okay, got it, got it, got it. Cool." It was to feel the beat of the rhythm of the night, and I was
That makes
like,
sense.
okay, or whatever rhythm of the night. Can't remember
Yeah.
exactly what the
Yeah.
exact title is, but that was the song, and I just remember that was what we had to audition to. So I was like, "Yeah, I can do that." And they were like, "Great." And they but then got kicked out. So then I got back in ninth grade officially when the ninth grade year started. Got back in, and obviously that slot had been taken because they could not have pairs, of people. So I was like, okay, well, the only thing I had left was one period, fourth period specific. I remember we had 7 periods. It was fourth period that was missing. The only thing that really kind of like that was an arts kind of what they called an arts elective for us, for the academic kids, was what they called drama, and ended up in that class with a bunch of seventh graders when I was in ninth grade. And obviously,
Oh.
that's a tough time. But you know what? I was like,
Hmm.
you know what? It's fine.
Hmm.
Loved it and started doing a bunch of different random things in that class, including like I didn't even start with like wanting to just be on stage. That was never like what I thought about. I was like,
Hmm.
okay, what about the like makeup plots and what about like the lighting design and what about all these other things that like and that was the stuff that I was like, okay, great, because I knew I didn't have any experience.
Hmm.
Like seventh graders had more experience than I did because they came from the arts
Right.
programming.
Yeah.
So I
Oh,
was like,
right. Right.
so I was like,
You were like a
night and
beginner, older dude coming into a place that you had never been before, and these kids had all been there from when they were young. So wait,
yeah.
back up to when you first went into that grammar school situation where you had
Uh-huh.
academics versus the arts. Did your parents choose one for you, or was it a lottery? Like, how did that work?
You had interview processes to like get into it's a magnet school program.
Oh, okay,
And
okay,
so
got it.
yeah, so we
Okay, all right,
interviewed a
okay.
process and like and that's where my sister had gone. And so like I think there was already and there was this element of like great, but I enjoyed it and I still do. Like I'm still very much a nerd when it comes to
Well,
math,
you know what though?
science.
Don't you think you can't do what you're doing unless you have that type of brain? Like I have a degree in bioengineering. Did I
Yeah.
do anything with it? No. You know what I mean? But is it helping me through the process of owning businesses and doing all the things that I do now and analyzing things? Yeah, absolutely. Same thing like I'm sure what you have to do with your casting, it's helping you now. But yeah, that's interesting that you were able to. It's so interesting that they didn't really have anything at the school that was arts, that it was so separated.
Yeah, it was one of those things that like ultimately like we, you know, it was very focused on whatever the kind of like program, the academic programming or the arts
Yeah.
programming. So
Yeah.
the arts kids had a bunch of stuff, but they had, their regular classes that were weighted the same. Whereas like our like math, social studies, reading, all of those were like elevated by a year, sometimes 2 years. So like they were really like created a little bit of a bump once I swapped over. So, once ninth grade came around, I was like, okay, I think I want to go next for high school. They divided back out.
Yeah.
Lamp was the kind of academic magnet program at the time, and
Yes.
then BTW Booker T was the arts
Okay.
program.
Understood. Yeah, we have that similar out here. Yeah. Well, were your parents artistic in any way? Were they in the arts?
No, my mom's
Mm.
was a banker for 20 something years, and my stepdad was a civil engineer and surveyor. So
Mm-hmm.
like, and that's the thing is like that's why it all that kind of came naturally to me just because I was around it all the
Right.
time. Both of them highly intelligent, very smart and lovely humans, So like
Yeah.
they definitely taught me a lot about that. But by the time I was like, okay, great, I want to go to the arts high school. And they were very
Mm-hmm.
supportive.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, okay, great. As long as we can figure out these like we knew that going to the arts program, eventually I was going to run out of classes because again,
Mm-hmm.
my academics had been
Your head.
already elevated, right? So I was like, okay, by my senior year, I'm going to run out of classes. Well, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of worked out. I auditioned with, I can't believe, I have to admit this every time because I think it's so important for people to hear as a casting director that the worst audition song that could be chosen, which was just the opening to Cats, was what I auditioned with for
No.
my high school program. And I
No.
think, I know, which is just literally the same words over and over.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it goes nowhere.
Yeah.
There's nothing to be done with
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm. Why
But
did you
that's
pick
not,
that? Were you just in love with the show or something?
it's all I knew. I had seen the
Oh.
VHS. And so like I was like, well, that's
Mm.
musical theater.
Yeah,
I
let me do
didn't
that.
know anything else,
Mm-hmm.
right? Nobody had ever talked to me about other musical theater. We did Little Abner in ninth grade. So maybe I should have done something from that, but I was like, that doesn't feel me. But Cats for like really for some reason resonated. So I did that and and somehow by the grace of whatever was able to get in with that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think they thought because of the song that I chose that I was a dancer.
Oh, of course. Yes.
I
Okay.
think they assumed, and because I think I put some sort of like physicality in there because it was like it's Cats, that's what they do in the VHS. I'm gonna do that, and I think they were like, "Oh, great, he's a dancer," and I was like, I got there and I was like, they were like, "How long have you been dancing?" And I was like, "No,
Well, you
never
had to
done
have
it."
some natural ability because with whatever movement you chose to do, it must have looked decent on you. You must have been able to be a natural regarding that because that's wild. Okay, so you get into this performing arts high school and they had academics there as well, or you had to go to a different school for that?
Nope, it was all there. So but the good part about that is like I was by that point too. And again, I'm only saying this to not overload, but to like remind people like what my stepdad always referred to as a diversified portfolio. I was really into model UN and debate, and I had taken like many years of Latin, so I was like in the National Junior Classical League, like going out for competitions in mythology. Like it was
I
all
actually
over the
love that.
place.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. Well, that probably helps a lot with what you ended up doing and
It
understanding all of these different themes and what's important with the shows and how they coincide with the old works and all that. Yeah, for sure.
and again, it gave me like reference point. And I think that's the thing that we often don't talk about in our industry about like how in order to be, I think, an artist of any sort, like you have to have something to draw from. And if you don't have
Mhm.
interests, hobbies, humans, like other things in your life that inspire you that you can then take from and bring into it, it never really lands. It could be good. I think the true greats of any genre, any field, any whatever you want to call it, I think those people, they have something to draw from. They have life to draw from. And so like that, I think that's what it gave me. So like ultimately, I went through that high school program and my who I still consider my very first mentor and probably my forever mentor. He's no longer with us. Randy Foster, who was he too was kind of like a Renaissance man, where he taught us, music theory. He taught us voice, but he also taught, we had a law magnet. He taught in the law magnet like ethics and he like in philosophy. Like he very much a Renaissance man and kind of reminded you of the White Rabbit from Alice in Wonderland. It had that energy of just like frantic, but like so ready to go all the time. He was amazing, and he truly changed my life. He taught me about Sondheim. He taught me about Adam Gettle. He taught me about like all the, he let me listen to like Michael John LaCusa. You know what I mean? Like in high school when
Hmm.
that probably wasn't,
Wasn't a thing for most.
probably, yeah, it wasn't a thing. And like he was like, what about this? And like he introduced me like Marie Christine. And I was like, what is this? This is amazing. So just having that kind of exposure and that experience and just someone willing to be like, here, check this out. Here, check this out. And it wasn't, he knew that I was catching up to everyone who had grown up on even movie musicals. I didn't grow up on that either.
Hmm.
They were like,
Hmm.
this. Like they were like, oh, well, when Gene Kelly did that, I was like,
What are you
okay,
talking about? Yeah.
no clue. I
Hmm.
was like,
Hmm.
I grew up on
Yeah.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I don't,
Yes.
I don't know what that is. So yeah, he was a huge influence on my
Hmm.
life and how I see art and how I approach art. And then after I graduated from high school, I applied to a bunch of different places, got scholarship to a bunch of different places. I was wanting to get out of Alabama, no
Hmm.
shocker, and my parents were very like realistic about it. Like, look, in order for that to be the case, then there's going to have to be this, and this financially. And I was just
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't want to do that. So then eventually I landed at the University of Montevallo, which is in the middle of nowhere, Alabama, which ended up being, I mean, I cry. I'm not going to pretend like at the beginning. I remember crying and being so angry and so mad and so upset because like, oh, like, nobody's letting me go live my dreams. Like I did that whole thing
Hmm. Hmm.
100%. By the time I got to Montevallo, I was just so excited to be out on my own, just
Right.
like as an independent human. I
Right.
was so ready for it. Even if it was at a dorm, even if it was, that's fine.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
I just didn't want to I wanted to be the one responsible for everything. So got there and it ended up being the best place that I could have gone ever. Um,
Really? What were you
Best place.
studying?
So I knew I was going for theater at that point, right?
Oh, you were.
And they
Okay.
have, it was kind of like the in state, that is like the one program that everybody points to,
Okay.
right? So Montevallo was kind of like the best choice, definitely of in-state schools.
So the
Oh,
person
go ahead.
who was the head of the department who was running all of that, were they in the industry themselves? Were these people at the university in the industry, or were they more book read academics regarding acting and all that?
So college night actually exists above everything, right? It kind of
Oh,
exists
okay. It's the
across
whole school.
the
Okay, got it.
whole school. So
Okay.
literally anybody can participate,
Okay.
right? So which is I
Now
think
I
is a
got it.
really unique thing
It
because
is.
we don't have like we didn't have a football team, right? So that was our homecoming tradition, and
Ah,
it superseded everything. It superseded Greek life. It
okay.
superseded everything. But I will say, obviously the departments, the music department, the theater department, like everyone kind of knew they're like, okay, it's college night season. Everyone's going to be exhausted because we were, going to school during normal hours, and then we would have
Right.
rehearsals every single night, pretty much.
That had to be pretty magical, though, to bring the school together, to bring all the, participants together to work on something that monumental. And this was every year.
Absolutely, every single year.
That
Yep.
is so, there's so much education behind that, and so much about community, about being the right, I don't know, adding to the culture within the whole project and being able to work. That is just,
Yeah.
it's
It
amazing.
was
No
it
wonder
was
you're
amazing.
saying it was the best place to go. Yeah.
Unparalleled. And
Yeah.
and it all culminated in the second weekend or the third weekend of February, where
Hmm.
they basically like they were pitted against the shows were pitted against each other, and then they would have
Oh,
yeah, they had so independent like adjudicators would
okay.
come in, and it was like hidden. No one knew who the judges were. And so
Okay.
the judges would come in, to see the show. They would adjudicate it. They would give everything back, and then numbers were tallied and whatever. And then there was like an announcement on the last night of like who won, because all the other like points that could be taken from like athletics, what they called spirit points, basically,
Hmm.
not being a
Hmm.
jerk.
Hmm.
Um, all these other like elements that went into the point total had already been allocated or had already been like tallied up. And then the show was the very last thing that got tallied. And then you find out like that Saturday night with everyone like standing in like in Palmer Auditorium, like waiting for the SGA president. It's there's nothing like it. It's overwhelming, especially for people that for the first time they go and they're like, what is happening?
Right.
So, but it was like I said, it was like it truly was instrumental and like, and here's the other thing, like the first my leader year, I think the first full length musical that a friend of mine and very close friend of mine, Stephen Elkins, wrote was because I was like, Stephen, you need to compose the entire show. Like you're the one. And he was like, okay. And now fast forward to what a few years ago, he already graduated from NYU's musical theater writing program. We still all his wife is a director that I work with still. Like we all went to college together and we have such long histories together that it has created an ongoing, professional and artistic collaborative relationship for to this day. To this day.
Well, you know what? That's similar to what you would get. Like I've done college concierge work for years and years, like probably 3 decades now, maybe more. Shh, don't tell anyone it's that long. Um, any of those programs, like when you look at Berkeley and Boco, like and what happens there and how all of the students really start to bubble up together. And then if they do end up in the industry doing this, and that ends up being their very strong trajectory career wise, they all bubble up in the space and end up like living together. University of Michigan's another one, like there's definitely places where everybody kind of ends up in the industry and stays kind of friends from having that experience. That's incredible.
Yeah, it really
I
was. It really was.
is it still that type of program? Is it still offering what it did then, or has it changed due to faculty shifts?
I mean, there's been some faculty shifts. The kind of my what were they good? My student advisor, is that what they were called? It's been too long now. I've forgotten. So like the person that yeah, I think it was like student advisor, faculty advisor. He was my faculty advisor. There we go. So he's still there actually. And because he was like early on when I started, and he's still there. I'm sure he's eyeing retirement now. Um, but he's still there. So obviously he's been able to like maintain a sense of like really cool thing. Dr. Callahan is his name. I still can't call him anything but Dr. Callahan. Um, I'm very Southern that way. But he definitely came out of the world of like the living theater and like experimental theater of like the 70s and early 80s. Like that was his vibe. So like he definitely implemented that into us. And there was also another professor in college named Vladimir Ravinsky who really took me under his wing as far as like this kind of theater that is slightly absurd, but also very physically grounded and physically based. He obviously, I lucked out because he chose me for a lot of his projects simply because I had a dance background by that point. So he was like, "Oh, like you can do crazy things with your body," you know what I mean? Like, so like he definitely like leaned in right as he got there, and I worked with him on so many different projects that I don't think people would be doing still to this day aren't doing. Like we were doing like the Baltimore Waltz, a play that by Paula Vogel that, deals with like it's a kind of like dream-like, non-linear, crazy piece about her. It's a self in a way it's about her, but and her brother. Not we were dealing with very, very heady material that wasn't just like very much like this is a play and these are characters. Like this is like these are concepts. How do we like take these concepts and put them on stage in like an interesting and like thought-provoking way? So we got that in college,
Wait,
so yeah,
where did the dance training come from? Was that from that high school program you went to, or was it during
yeah.
college? Did it all kind of and was it easy for you, the dance component?
It was fun, so it was easy, so I never had, like I said, never had taken it, but once I got to 10th grade, that's when it started. And like I just remember we had to take dance every Tuesday, I think it was, for musical theater. So we would go over to the dance department and take dance classes with Mr. Moore and Miss Omi. And they were just like, how long have you been doing this? And I was like, right now.
In
They
a
were like,
past life. Maybe you were doing it in a past
apparently,
life.
yeah, apparently.
That's
Because
wild.
they were just like, that's crazy. Can we like immediately he kind of like swooped me under his wing. Was like, we need to get you in like some more classes. Are you up for that? I was like, yeah, let's
Mm-hmm.
get in class.
Okay.
So I talked to my parents. My parents again, super supportive. So I started taking classes at like Alabama Dance Theater, which is one of the major kind of like dance programs in Montgomery. Um, that and like Montgomery Ballet, but ADT seemed like a little bit more of a fit for me. And they were very excited to have boys.
Yeah, yeah, that
Um,
was the thing. Yeah, until we had So You Think You Could Dance and it started to really push the boy thing. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's just interesting that you said yes to a lot of things and you obviously had a lot of talent because without that, it's hard to sometimes get noticed, by professors. Not all professors and teachers give everything to every student, sadly. When I had my brick and mortars, I was very much about that. If I hired somebody and they weren't giving everything to everyone, because you just don't know if that kind of young, like, the swan hasn't really developed yet, like you want to give it to everybody. So it sounds like you really had a lot of wonderful people that were helping you. And was that all by default, or were your parents coordinating that in some way, or were those your choices? That's a big question for my people that are listening.
the big thing for me, I think there's two elements to this. Absolutely, my parents were supportive and they were listening to what I wanted to do, and they were obviously there were limitations, right? There's always going to be limitations.
Yeah.
We live in the real world, but
Hmm.
there is like it was like how it was. I was able to go to my parents and say, how can we make something happen,
Right.
right? And then the other element that I think is really important is that like for me, and I think there's something to like take away from this is that for me, like I didn't have all the, built-in, I didn't have all the built-in like training and all that kind of stuff, right? So like
Hmm.
I was
Hmm.
behind in that respect, but
Hmm.
I also didn't have like the internal judgment thing going on. I was like,
Yes.
yeah, let's do it, whatever. Like, cool, cool, cool. Like it didn't matter because I was like, I don't know what's right and what's wrong.
And you were enjoying it so much.
Right. And like, and I didn't mind being given notes. I didn't take it
Mm.
personally, like, and that I think that was a big thing too. But again, I had not been beaten down, like
Yes.
so like admittedly. So I was like,
Hmm.
it's like, like seeing like a kid that just loves dancing and you just like let them dance. You're like, yes, great, try this. And they're like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And you know what too, Jason, in this day and age when, even when my kids were growing up, I remember there was a soccer program. It's kind of like, it's a rite of passage soccer program in town, and all the
Hmm.
kids sign up at like 4 and 5. And I remember Kevin being 4 years old, not kidding you, and the coach coming over to me after like the first month and said to me, he needs to do soccer every single like season. You can't stop. It's got to be all year. And he needs to sign up for this and sign up for that because he happened to have an affinity for that. And what I was watching was like an amoeba of children just like running around in a clump, kicking the ball.
Right.
And parents get this, we're programmed sometimes, especially in certain areas, to say, oh my gosh, like if they don't start when they're really young, then maybe we can't go in that direction. Or he's not going to be successful because everybody worries about, are they going to be able to make a living? And you want them to have a happy life and all the things that we think about. And at a certain point, like you got to give them a chance. I can't tell you how many dancers, singers, and actors that have come through when I had the brick and mortar who started at 14, started at 16, started at 17, juniors in high school who did a community theater show because their friend was doing it and they needed another guy who could, was strong and who could pick the girl up. And he was
Figure
a
somebody out.
football
Yeah.
player. And next thing you know, we find out he can sing, he loves it, and he ends up on scholarship at Montclair State in New Jersey for dance. What? Like you have to give your kids a chance. So obviously your parents were super supportive, like you were saying, and they were willing to let you kind of find your way. But was there a certain moment where you were just like, this is my path. I'm doing what? Was it musical theater? Was that what you were going for? Like, did you have that in your head, or were you just kind of doing what you loved and waiting to see where things were going to fall? Like, what was that focus?
So it was actually in high school where like I would say the seed was kind of
Yeah.
planted. And
Okay.
that was again with Randy Foster.
Was that him telling you, like, you have talent, you could do this? Did someone actually say to you, you could be working in musical theater as a professional?
Mr. Moore, I remember after a performance, he looked at me like after we were in like the green room. He was like, "Look, if you really want to do this, you can do it." And that was just he was my dance side. He was looking at it like because I was like I really liked ballet. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
liked that world.
Hmm.
And he was like, if you really want to do this, you could do it. Like
Hmm.
you'll have to it's something you will have to like key into, but it's possible
Right.
for you. And I was like, okay,
That's
great.
and that's important that you know that you heard him because a
Mhm.
lot of kids will shrug it off. Like I say that all the time. Like if a professional comes up to you as a parent or up to you as a high school student and says, "Listen, like you're good enough to actually do this. Like let's have a
Right.
conversation or whatever." Like listen to them because if your heart and soul loves it so much, why not allow your life to be the thing that you love? Why say no to something? And a lot of that no, I think, comes from the curtain that's pulled and the doors that are shut and the gatekeepers in this industry. But that's another thing
Absolutely.
we can talk about. So go on about
Yeah.
what the teacher
Yeah.
said, what they said to you.
Mr. Moore said that, and then Mr. Foster, he was the one that actually for the I just remember I flipped over the CD, the CD, that tells you, the
Yeah, yeah,
CD
yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
Lacuse, Michael John Lacuse's The Wild Party, because I that was like one of the newest things that I got, and I was like, I think it was around my 10th or 11th grade year, probably my 11th grade year, and I just remember being like listening to it and being like, what is this? This is it just to me it sounded there's no other way to say it. It just sounded right. And I was like so intrigued by everyone on it. And I like had committed and I went up to Mr. Foster. I was like, oh my gosh, first of all, I want to know who this person is. I want to know who this person like I knew Eartha Kitt because she was Catwoman. So like I knew her, right? But and like I knew, but other than and I knew Mandy Patinkin simply because he had been in so many Sondheim stuff pieces. So like I knew that from Mr. Foster, but I was like, who is this Toni Collette woman? Like I was like, who is that? And who is Nathan Lee Graham? And who is Michael McElroy? And who is, Brooke Sunny Moriber? And he was like, I don't know exactly who they are, but I can help you find it. And I was just so intrigued by the people that were part of, this crazy sound because that's all I had was sound, right? And like I was just obsessed with it. I didn't stop playing it. Mark Kudish, like all these people. And he was like, I was like, and I looked at Mr. Foster. I was just like, hey, like, how did that happen? Like, how did they find all these people? He's like, and he flipped it over and he pointed and he was like, there's a casting director. And this casting director, right? So, and the crazy part, still thinking about it, is like, it's Jordan Thaler and Heidi Griffiths, which they, of course. So from then on, I knew these two people's names. I didn't know what they looked like because this was still early real internet stalking. You
You know
couldn't
what?
do
Yeah,
like
but
what
you
you do.
know what? It's just interesting that you, as an individual, were interested in the people as opposed to being interested. Obviously, the music as well, but most young people would just be like interested in the lyrics and maybe the music if they play piano or if they played whatever drums or an instrument or something. I could see that, and they would want to go see the show, or they would want to find more shows like that, or more. They'd be looking just for the music, and for you to be interested so much in the people is
Yeah.
very cool for where you landed because it's
Yeah.
very unusual.
Yeah. And I think what it comes down to is because, like, again, I didn't while I enjoyed doing it and enjoyed learning and things like that, I never saw what I was doing as a place where I was personally, not that anybody could, but I personally was not going to end up doing it as a career. I didn't think that at any point, you
Wow.
know?
Okay. Okay.
And if I did, like it might have been fleeting or just because, you're around a bunch of other people who are
Right.
like, I want to be on the stage. And I was like, me
Yes.
too.
Yes. This is
Like,
my dream role and this is what I
yeah,
want to do. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was
Yeah.
just like, I think it's because I never wanted to sing those songs. I was like, that is the way it needs to be sung, right? That's what needs to be happening. Or Eartha Kitt singing this song, like I would never pretend that I could sing that song because
Right.
like
And you could hear, yes, yes. You could
you
discern between the levels and how high level proficiency this was all being
yes.
presented at. Very
Yeah.
interesting. So
So
that so then
that was the beginning.
so
I
that
would say
was
that's the beginning.
casting. This is something
Yeah.
I'm interested in. How does
Yeah.
this all happen and whatever. Okay, so now you're in. you're out of the university situation. How did you end up? Who got you into the casting lane, and how do you get there?
Right. That's a great question. And it's different than what I would say now is very different than how I got into it because the world has literally changed. Um, but I think it is important to hear because I think younger people don't realize this is how it used to be. Which is, I came here, I got a job outside of the industry, saved up a bunch of money because I knew I was going to have to take an internship. And internships at that time, you could still do it without college credit, right? You didn't have to be in college. And it was zero dollars for a lot of time.
If you're interested in a career in the performing arts for yourself or your child, teen, or young adult, you're in the right place because I have helped hundreds of clients break into the performing arts business on stage, in films, television, commercial work, and more. This podcast is supplemental to my groundbreaking online courses. For more information, check out all the ways that you can benefit from my online courses, in-person seminars, and one-on-one work sessions. Go to lbctalent.com and apply for a free, no-obligation strategy call with me. Now, back to the podcast.
That was when I was working that job and basically, things were getting kind of dodgy with it anyway. And I was like, okay, it's time. The universe is pushing in the ways that need to be pushed. It's time to start applying to all the internships that I can. So I started doing that. I went on a bunch of interviews. I interviewed, at a very large casting office and got brought into that. The funny part to that is the person that interviewed me, I'm still friends with, close, and the person that I ended up underneath, she's like my sister at this point. So I worked there for a while. I started the internship program there. And then in the middle of it, about a month into it, maybe a little over a month into it, there was a woman who was, they called it the musical theater apprentice at the time, right? It was basically an elevated intern, right? They got paid a little bit of money. It was like $400 a week or something like
Oh
that,
my
or
God.
like 300 bucks or something. But at that time I was just like,
It's
yes.
something. Yeah,
I was
yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
because right now zero is the number.
Yeah.
So, I was like, okay. I was like, so she left for an agency for a full-time job at an agency. And I was just like, oh, wow. I was like, what's going to happen with that? So I kind of did my little, like rat race to figure out like, oh, what's going on with that? Like, is there going to be somebody taking over? Because I was also, most everybody else was like closer to college age and I was like 25.
All right.
So,
That's
like I
young
was
still. That's
still
still
young,
young.
but like when you're looking at a 21-year-old who's still in college,
Oh, yeah.
you're
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like it's very
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
I'm
you're
here
way
to
more
do this.
mature. Your prefrontal cortex has developed at 25.
And also just like I was like, I know I want to do this, right? And versus them,
Okay.
they're like, I'm doing this for college credit. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, cool, whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was like a slightly different like perspective when I was there too. So I was like, okay, what's the process? Like, how does that work? And so at the time there were a couple of folks who really, really like adored me and took me under their wing. There were far more that wanted nothing to do with me. And I was like, okay, whatever. Like, to me, I was just like, in my brain is like, I'm smart, I'm fast, I know how to communicate. Like, once you teach me once, like, I don't need to be taught twice. I'm a fast learner. Like, I was like, okay, whatever. So they were like, oh, kind of eye rolled. They're like, well, if you want to, you can apply. I was like, okay, great, I'm gonna apply. So I applied, and of course, because it hadn't been released to anywhere, I was probably the only person out of our intern group that like expressed interest. So they were like, okay, fine, we'll give it to you, but we're not going to pay you. And I went, and of course I was like, I was already not being paid. So like I remember getting the email and I just remember like crying
Oh
because I was
no.
just like, because I took it personally. I was like, you're not worth it. Right. I took that as like, you're not worth it.
Okay.
I was like, you're not worth being paid. And I was just like, and I just remember crying and then like taking a deep breath and being like, screw it. I'm already being paid $0. And I responded, I was like, as long as the position is something I'll be able to include and I'll be able to have references for when I'm done, that seems
Smart.
like a fair assessment.
Yeah. And you're going to learn more.
So crying, sending that email.
Aw.
But that's like that's part of it too. And I think that's really important for young people to hear too. Like things are gonna upset you. Things are gonna hurt your feelings. That doesn't mean anything other than your feelings are hurt, right?
Yes, yes, not the end of the world.
Not the end of the world, right? As
Yeah.
like, and so I
Yeah.
responded. I was like, yeah, I would love to do it. It would be an honor, blah blah blah. So then I did that and stayed there for another like 6 months. I think it was just to get the full like experience. Worked on a bunch of big shows, and then I was like, okay, I don't feel like they want me here. Otherwise, they could have at any point been like, hey, here's an
Yes.
assistant job,
Yes.
and
Yeah. Here's the
I was
money.
like,
Show me the money. Yeah, it's time to show you the money.
and it never happened. And I was
Oh,
just like, okay. So
relationships, relationships, relationships. Yes,
yeah,
it's yep, yep. All
and just showing up, showing up.
yes. And doing the work and being able to do the work and saying yes to things when maybe it's not the perfect scenario, not wanting it to be perfect because it's not always going to be perfect as you're climbing any ladder in any career. Things are not going to be handed to you. You have to show that you can work hard and that you can do the job and have the right people notice. And that's what happened for you.
100%. And so that is kind of what eventually got me the assistant job. And since I had already been monitoring for them, I already knew everyone, right? So
Ah,
I was going into an interview where I knew everybody.
that's
I was like,
cool.
"Hey guys, how are you? Oh my God, so good to see you!" Like it was very
Yeah.
casual, and like Jay, sat down, and he was the one that knew me the least,
Okay.
and he was like, "Look, this is what we're looking for. Are you interested in that?" I was like, "I am," but I do want to say that there will for just knowing myself, I want to do this. I want to do this thing and I'm willing to learn, but I learn very quickly. And I
Hmm.
want to learn how y'all do it and I want that to be part of who like the artist that I am, but I also have there will come a time when I'm like, "Hey, I don't want to be an assistant anymore." And so if you're looking for someone who's going to be your assistant for like the next 3 years, it is not me. And he was
Smart.
like, nope, that's fine. That's totally fine. We need an assistant for now. And then as things develop, we'll figure out how to like add things on. It's like I'm telling you right now, I'm not even saying like, oh, you need to give me a bunch more money or you need to give me a weird title. I'm just saying I will want to have responsibility.
Right, right.
I want to have
What is it?
responsibility.
You know what? For people who are listening, what is that hierarchy? So you were like an assistant, and then is it like an associate? Like, can you give everybody that? Because I'm sure there's people out there wishing they could get into casting and having no idea how to do so.
Right. I think that, I mean, there kind of does exist an inherent hierarchy for most offices, which is kind of like the intern being now, especially the baseline is on the forefront of everything. And then there's like a casting assistant, right? Which, then kind of like takes a little bit more like responsibility of dealing with the folks that are like full-time employees there, but, definitely is like handling some smaller projects maybe or collaborating with somebody in the office on smaller projects. Then there's what are casting associates. It's a little bit, and again, I'm saying this from a theater standpoint, less a film and television, because those are a little bit more rigid, those definitions. Um, but the casting associate very often will essentially be casting directors in their own right, right? But, will kind of function underneath the figurehead of an office. And then there's casting directors that vary, especially in theater. It's usually the person whose name is on the door because I guess nobody has, everyone, we've gotten a little bit away from that kind of like blanket company. But usually it was that, like that was kind of the general hierarchy of it all. That doesn't mean like that the only casting director in the office is the name on the door, but it does mean that that person probably has their hands in almost every project that comes through, or they're a big reason why the office is being hired, right, by whatever production. So it's a little vague once you start getting into like associate. And to me, it's like on a project by project basis. For example, so when I got out of Bender 2000, I knew that I love working with people. You know what I mean? I don't want to sit in an office by myself. I like people. I like collaborating. I like bouncing ideas. I like talking. I like looking over and being like, is this a bad idea? That's part of the process for me. So I wanted to maintain like stability and structure for our clients with this kind of like well-known casting director, casting associate, casting assistant concept, but alleviate the kind of like like the obsessiveness with these titles. So because I wanted to get rid of that, I was like, basically, I was like, I don't. If, for example, Andrea Z, another casting director that I work with, if she came to me and she's like, "Do you want to be my assistant on this project?" Just like I can see how she would deliver it too. I'd be like, "For you, yes. For Andrea Z, I will be your casting assistant. For most other people in this industry, absolutely not." And so that to me, that's why I want to say like the titles get a little fuzzy.
Muddy. Sure.
Yeah. So
Sure.
it's like
Well, it's
it's
kind of,
important.
yeah, it's kind of like in this industry where, you could be doing one thing and then helping a friend out doing something else. And if it's within that hierarchy that you're willing to work in, then you're going to be like, yeah, sure, I'll help you with that project. It's just kind of how this business works across the board, I think, whatever lane that you're in, right? Right. Well, we could keep talking forever. It's getting late. Um, so I do have a very specific question that I think would help people if you want to share that. When you're casting something, and for everybody who's listening, just Google Jason because you will see everything that he has cast. We're not talking specifically about all of that, but you can definitely Google it, and we can list some of it on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. But when someone comes in to be cast, let's say for a Broadway show or for a stage show, um, can you just give that? Can you give people a little bit of an idea of the process that you go through? You know how like in film and TV, there's a whole process of the audition and the callback and the this and the that, and then you get pinned and the da. You know what I'm saying? Like, can you kind of go through that and maybe interject who is the person that's making those decisions as that's happening? That'd be really fabulous if you're willing to
Totally,
to
yeah.
talk about it.
Yeah, of course, of course. And it will vary from project to project. Let me go ahead and say that now, but I'm going to speak very generally, right? As far as like the way my brain sees it, right? And is that ultimately like you have your kind of, since we're talking inside of the landscape of theater, you have the first kind of like wave of auditions typically are your what are called required calls, right? The things that equity sets up for its membership. That sometimes is enough for certain things. Not most of the time, it is not, right? That is just a way for us to meet you, and be like, oh, you're in the world. Let's now bring you back to an appointment with materials from the show. What I call, I kind of brand it as a first appointment, right? That to me is the real first audition for the show. The required calls, of course, they are informative and helpful, but like at that point, we haven't heard you on material from the show. How do we know? So then at a first appointment, we used to have, now the budgets are all gone. But before a first appointment back in the day, the way that we did it, especially at vendor casting and how Jay trained me to do things, is like ultimately we would do what we called pre-screens, which were really just work sessions. There were individual work sessions. We didn't need to see people that, if I'm like, no, you're perfect for this role. I don't need to do anything. You come and do your thing. I trust you. There were times though when, I was like, oh, like I love this person, but I don't know if they're going to be right on that material. Can we have them come in just to work with me, for 10 minutes, go over the material, get it in place. So that way, if we need to bring them back for the team, they have a good idea of what they're walking into. Great. Or somebody I've never met before in my life. This person just graduated. They blah 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 blah. I'm like, okay, great. You know what? If I have time, I will get them in on the material. They seem most in line with this role. Have them bring in that material. We'll work through it. And then after that, no guarantees. I'm not guaranteeing to bring you back into the team at that point. That part doesn't really exist too much anymore. And that was
Right.
probably my favorite part of this
Yeah.
job because it
Yeah.
allowed me, like I have a BFA in directing. It allowed me to get into a room,
Yes.
direct people, give them feedback, give them context, and be like, hey, just so you know, this director is really into this, this, and this.
Yes, and it's so
We're playing
helpful
at
for
some other
the
level.
actor too. It's so helpful
Yes,
for them before they're in front of the whole team and having to, wonder, are they doing what they really want? That's amazing. Yeah, sadly,
Um, it's
budgets have
gone.
changed. Budgets
It's
have
gone.
changed.
And there's no way to do
Yeah,
that virtually, really, because again, the budgets still don't even allow for that. So
yeah,
I miss that. That is like the heart of what
yeah.
what my, that's why I like teaching so much. Like I'm like,
Hmm.
let me go out and teach because like, quite frankly, I'm good at it. I'm really good at it.
Yeah.
I can give you pointers that are efficient,
Hmm.
effective, and that way you can go and like it'll marinate and you'll present them in your own way through your own lens. But
Yes, yes, yes.
that's what I'm good at.
Hmm.
So anyway, but now we don't have that, but we do have first appointments, right? So first appointments will be with most of the team, if not all of the team.
Hmm.
Um, and then at that point, they may or may not have callbacks from that point. Um, if it's a bigger show or if you're a Broadway show, there may be multiple callbacks,
Yeah.
right? There may be a first callback and then a final callback.
Hmm.
Um, but those are the kind of categories, the way my brain looks at all of it. And I think that's really important for young people to kind of understand because, like, and getting on the same terminology. Because if you send me an email being like, oh, I had a callback for this, I'm like, no, you didn't. You came in for an
Yes.
appointment. And I was like,
Hmm.
and I'm not trying to like put you in your place. It's just,
Yes.
it sounds like you're trying to overcompensate what it was, even though that's not the intention. And I'm over here trying to be like, I don't remember you coming in for a callback. So like
Yes.
it's very important for all of us to be working from same like similar vocabulary.
Yes, the semantics is so, so important. Inside my course that I have, and when I'm working with people one on one, that is like my pet peeve. There's no such thing as a casting agent. What are you saying? That's a huge red flag. Or people who think that they're going to send their materials to a casting agent that doesn't exist and they're going to rep them. Like people just don't understand. They are seeing all of this kind of coming at them. Even graduates coming out of universities don't understand the semantics of this. People
Yeah.
are submitting on a profile on the profile systems and getting an opportunity to show something and they're calling it a callback. And I have to try to explain to them exactly. You don't want to put them down in any way or make it seem like it's not a big deal or whatever, but that's not what it is. This
At all.
information needs to be out there in the world
Yeah. Yeah. And
for
I
people
think
to
that
understand.
absolutely. And I think that it will also just make the the work that you're doing, it'll give you more energy and a more confidence in the work that you're doing rather
Yes.
than, having to navigate translational issues.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
So it's like
Yep.
you should already have the vocabulary, understanding of the vocabulary and the flow of the process. I think that is
Hmm.
it's so well stated to your point, right? That like knowing these sorts of things and how the flow of the workflow of an
Yes.
audition process is
Hmm.
so important for you as an actor, as a performer of any stripe, because if you understand that, then you also stop making up little stories too.
Yes, I was just going to say, getting upset about something or thinking that, what do you mean? How come I wasn't included in that workshop day or whatever it happens to be? And it's only because they don't understand that real process.
Right.
It's yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
that you say that. And they have to understand too that at the end of the day, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but the client, the team, the producers, the director, the choreographer, the musical director, they're making final decisions. It's not the casting director making
I
that
wish it
final
were.
decision. You're just
If
you're the filter, really. And I'm saying that with
that
love and devotion
yes,
and respect,
yes. Yes,
because
we are filters, we are translators, we are, like we're all these things that like, you know,
collaborators.
yes. And then look, there are times where like, yes, a director that especially one that I work with, like the ones I worked with for a really long time, they'll look at me like, what are we doing? And
Hmm.
I'm like, this is the answer I'm telling you. And they'll be like, great. You know what I mean? Like that, but that's not like every single decision that's made, right?
Yeah,
My
yeah.
job is to keep it all together, help them populate the world that they're creating, help the actors understand the world that this director is trying to create, and
Hmm.
understand how to like get everyone to meet in the middle. We're just
Hmm.
trying to get everybody to meet in the middle so that way you have the best chance of booking the job.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that is really important to like for people to understand. It's like I look, if I had final say on everybody that got cast, we wouldn't need to have auditions
Yeah.
for most anything. I'd be like, great, maybe this one role, we'll have audition. I was like, I know the answer. Like, like if
Yes,
I were
yes,
truly in charge. So like, but I'm
yes.
not. My job
Well,
is
you
to get
know
in
what?
there and like do
Honestly, that, sorry to interrupt you, but
Yeah,
that honestly speaks to actors, performers understanding that when you see them and you keep calling them back and maybe they haven't booked yet, that means something. You know, that
it's
means you
huge.
respect them, you like them, you know that they're going to be right for something. It just hasn't happened yet. Am I right, wrong, in the
A
middle?
hundred percent, 100%. And there will be, that's the thing is like, obviously with budgets, again, I hate that we keep talking about budgets, but like budgets getting smaller, I have less like ability to shove people in, right? But like I still find my way, like if I'm like, look, I don't know if they're right for this role, but I think they're right for our world. And I want you to see them. And so I still do that. I still do that to this day. And look, I can't guarantee that the team is going to take it seriously, but the people that I collaborate with, like, and I mean, like, not just like I happen to be casting a show for. I mean, like the people that truly look at me as a collaborator, they remember these people. They'll be like, oh, they're not right for this. They're right not right for this, but I'm working on this other thing. Is it okay if I bring them in for this other project that I'm not even working on? I'm like, please, please bring them in. Jess McLeod is a perfect example. She's a beautiful director. Out at La Jolla right now, like she is one of my favorite collaborators because if anybody pops up that I'm like, Jess, you will love this person. This person is so in your wheelhouse. It was the same for Darko all those years of, Gentleman's Guide and everything else that we did with Darko. Like when I saw people, I was like, this person is a Darko person. I don't know where they fit. I don't need to know where they fit. You know what I mean? Like I just know that I have to get them in the room. They have to meet, and that will be that. It will resolve itself. And that's
Yeah,
happened so
and
many times.
you know what too, Jason? I think people have to understand that as you're mentioning budgets, I do want to talk about that before we go, but because I think everyone has to understand that the producers and everyone who is figuring out the budget at the top of any project is going to allow only so much money for the casting piece. They have to do the set, and then they have to pay for the house and like all of these things, a marketing department. And when you really learn and you give yourself an opportunity as a performer to understand where you fit in this huge project, like what cog are you? But each one is costing money. And so the casting person, yourself, you only have so many hours that you're given based on how much money they have offered you based on a bid and or whatever, however it came down, whether it was your bid or they knew you and they hired you. And so here we have this space that you're working within because your time is worth money and you have to get paid and you have to put a roof over your head and food in your mouth and all of those things. And so you can only spend so much time. And that's what gets crunched when budgets there's all those pieces that happen. The show that has to be more minimal and maybe not as much set because they just don't have the money and they decide they're going to do it this way. It's none of our decisions. The actor can't turn around and say, well, how come I don't have this beautiful set piece to stand on? Or, like that's not your choice. It's not your choice. You have to decide, I'm an actor, I'm a performer, I'm in this lane. This is my lane. I'm the storyteller. I'm the vehicle for that storytelling, and I have to go through all these other pieces of that process to get to that production and be a part of it. And so many people don't really understand that. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I appreciate you saying that because like I think people often dehumanize the casting director or the casting office or the casting through that because like all of a sudden like okay great, well then take more tapes. I'm like that's still hours of my day that I have to like that I don't get paid extra for it. I get paid an exact amount of money. And so for every extra 200 tapes that you want me to watch, now I'm making, 12.50 an hour. Okay. I was already making 14.50 an hour. You know what I mean? Like this is not like, especially when we're talking about like off-Broadway regional, like things outside
Yes,
of
it's not this
Broadway.
big glorified money making, like we're doing this because we love this and we are in the same position. Yes, you look at us and put us on this pedestal that we have this control, but really you're almost like middle management in a way because you have to answer to this and you have to answer to this, the agents and managers, right? You're like trying to do all of that. I mean, it's a lot. And I think you have to be very much a Renaissance man to be able to do this job. Like you have to be able to understand so many different aspects of the world. It's incredible. I mean, kudos to you, seriously.
Yeah, and
It,
then you're also running a business. You know what I mean? Like
yes,
in
on
addition to that,
top of
like
it all.
on top of all that, like not even doing the
Hmm.
thing that we're hired to do. It's like you also have to
Hmm.
like pay for rent and like make sure that you have your certificate of insurance, like all these
Yes,
things that like
yes,
nobody when they said they wanted to be a casting director thought they were going to have to do because you don't it's not like working at a big corporation, right?
yes.
These are all small businesses, and I think that's something that I think people often forget too, that like not only am I this, but I'm like at the end of the day I'm also the janitor. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
like this. It's like
yeah,
that is what it
yeah,
has to be. Sometimes I'm the one that has to take out the trash
yeah, yeah,
because there's
absolutely.
nobody else.
Yeah,
So like I
yeah.
think that is
Hmm.
such an important, and I do really truly appreciate like acknowledging that. I
Yeah,
think that is something that gets very much pushed aside as if like we are robots that should just keep watching self tapes until 5 a.m. Get an
yes,
hour of sleep, wake up and do it again. And I'm like,
yes.
this is not. I didn't sign up
Well, you
to.
know
I
what,
don't.
too? Yeah, and Jason, the other thing that I'm thinking, and I tell clients this all the time, you need to have a relationship. Like, don't walk into an office. The person at the desk could be the associate who's going to, or the assistant that's going to turn into the associate or whatever it happens to be. Like, treat everybody with respect, learn their names, know their names. If you've been in a casting office numerous times and you still don't know the person at the desk's first name or however you need to address them, and you still don't know the person who is putting you on tape and giving you all the information as they're doing that, if you don't know their name, that's a problem. You need to
Huge problem.
focus.
Huge, huge, huge problem. Because again, we're all human, right? And we all are gonna gravitate toward people who want to be human with us. So like it's I if you know the person who makes your matcha latte in the morning and you don't know the casting director's name, we have a problem. And I think and it's not to say you shouldn't know the person who makes your matcha latte. I fully think that you should know that person's name because I see there's some coffee shops that they saw me every morning for years of my life in the best and the worst, right? So like, come on, like, and the sooner we start to actually have a real relationship, an organic relationship, the better I can understand what to do with you and where you fit. And with the projects that I have, I am limited by the projects that I currently have. I wish I had all the Broadway shows. I wish. I wish that were the case. I'd be so happy. However, that is not the case. So ultimately, if you might be perfect for Wicked, okay, that's not me. I don't know what to tell you. So like, it's just like it's like wonderful that that's the case. But like, I think it's really important to start like looking at people like as multi-layered individuals that have like that we are just trying to all make it work. And to your point, right, we're not we also there comes a point where like I can't keep working on a show. There comes a point, right, like that generation of casting directors they're still with us, let me be very clear, but they were the ones that told people like me, you have to stay late hours this week and the weekend while they went home. So the only way they were able to make this whole like this kind of statement of like, oh, you work until it happens, the only way any of them were able to do it was by taking advantage of younger people and not paying them for that time and not, like some people were better about being grateful for it. And then some people are literally just go to their, house on somewhere and then expect the assistants to like do the work. So like, and that's what my generation is adamantly against. We will break it. End of story. And that has been a problem. It has been a problem in the past like 8 years of existence. That those folks are so acclimated to being like, well, we got the project, have fun, bye, and running out the
Yeah,
door.
yeah,
And I'm like, no, that doesn't
yeah,
happen. That won't
yeah,
happen anymore, or
yeah.
it's going to
That's
happen
that's
much
a
less.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. So we have to tie it up because I'm
Oh,
taking up
sorry.
all this. No, I'm thrilled. I could talk to you for another hour. But I don't want to take up too much more of your time. So, um, do you have one thought on advice? One thing for people coming in or any part of this or even career path wise for people who are thinking they want to do something in the arts, like anything you could think of, or for parents even?
I think it's related to the very last thing that we talked about. And I think it's literally about getting to know the humans, right? Getting to know the people, do a little research. Like it's now, there's no more excuse anymore, right? You can find out a lot about me on the internet. And I'm not, again, I have no Broadway shows right now. So, you know what I mean? Like, so if that sort of information can be found out about me, I guarantee you can find out information about other people, like getting to know them and getting to know your teams. And again, in an organic way. I think that, you don't need to fake a friendship. You don't need to fake anything, but get to know us. That takes time.
Hmm. It's
But
a
get to know
journey.
us.
It's a
It's a journey.
journey.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Because I
Yeah.
always tell people showing up on a first date and you're talking about marriage, that's going to put people into crazy mindset. But if you show up on a first date as a first date, getting to know you, great. This is very, very relaxed, very fun. Getting like, and you may go, I don't ever want to see you again. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what it
But
is.
that's a great analogy. I love that. That's exactly how people should be. They get too, I think they get too, they get all hepped up and nervous and they want the job and they put people on pedestals and you lose that human interaction and that, all the years that I've been in and around it that is the biggest answer to a lot of what they consider problems is to just be friendly, add to the culture, be kind, like all of those things. And it's coming across with all of my guests across the board. We're in the sixth season and it's over, I think I'm over 60. It's crazy, a podcast. And they're all, yeah, everybody that's in is like, that's really the main thing. So, okay. How can people find you? They want to follow you. They want to find out more about you. Like, give us the old elevator pitch here.
I mean, everything is like I said, everything everywhere. Instagram is probably my favorite social media kind of like thoroughfare, just because it's the one that
Yeah.
I probably use the most. It's
Mm-hmm.
easier for me to use. You can actually use it online a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But it's casting by Jason Styres, but also we have a separate account for the casting collaborative. So that way we can kind of like team up on projects whenever we need to. And then my website, it's just thecastingcollab.com. And it has actually, if you like, people are always like, I can't find your email. I'm like, go to my website, click on the little mail. It goes directly to me. There's no
Yeah.
assistant. There's no assistant looking at it. There's no intern looking at it. It goes directly to me.
Nice. That
So,
is very nice of you to
yeah,
do that. I do the same
yeah,
thing. Everything comes right to me.
yeah. It's like, but that way I can make decisions about it. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
important.
Super smart. This was fabulous, Jason. Thank you so
Thank,
much.
thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this was really great. Thanks for watching the Making It Happen a Career in the Performing Arts podcast. Tune in on Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern. And if you'd like to connect with Jason, follow him on socials at Casting by Jason Styres or at The Casting Collab. And find him on the web at thecastingcollab.com. Need more info and details about the professional performance industry? Visit lbctalent.com. And schedule your free no obligation consultation and follow me on socials at Leesa Csolak _. That's LEESACSOLAK _. By sharing our stories, we can help other talented individuals land the career of their dreams. If you're enjoying this podcast, please like and subscribe below and hit the bell for notifications.